I want to stay on Apple, bring in Art Laffer, former Reagan economist. Good morning, Art. Now, look,
Good morning, Stuart.
If Apple is no longer the market leader, and it doesn't seem to be the market leader at this point, then who is?
Well, I would imagine that right now the market leaders have to be the tech sector, but I don't know which company would be the market leader. But I know it's not Amazon. That I do know.
I'm surprised, though, they're cutting back production on the very popular iPhones just as we get into the holiday season. I thought it was going to be a very strong season. I'm surprised they're cutting back like this.
Oh, I think it's going to be a very strong season. I think you're going to have a good season for total retail sales. But I just don't think the iPhones here in Apple specifically is going to be the right one.
Well, if Tim Cook says it looks like regulation is virtually inevitable, will we have the kind of regulation that really changes the business models of the Facebooks of this world and the Googles of this world? Can he go that far?
Well, I don't think it's going to happen that way, to be honest with you. I mean, Trump has made a proposal that for every regulation put in, you got to get rid of 2 regulations. So I don't see the regulatory environment increasing dramatically over the next 2 years. That's for sure. Now, maybe there are some specific regulations on Apple that should be put in, but I think it's going to be a deregulation trend in the U.S., and that's going to be very powerful for economic growth.
So you're not concerned about regulation crimping the big techs of America?
I'm not concerned with President Trump in office right now and the regulatory environment. No, I am not concerned about regulations right as we speak. I mean, with Congress having changed in the House and with the possibility of a 2020 election going the wrong way, I would be concerned in the long run for regulation. But right now, I think regulation is nicely under control, and the president's doing a great job with executive orders as well as best he can with his own cabinet.
Okay, stand by for a second there, Art. I just want to change subjects for a moment.
Okay.
The economy, I think, is doing very well. Gas, very cheap. Retail watchers expect a strong comeback for the consumer during the holiday periods. Let's see if Liz Peek agrees with my analysis there. Well, analyze this.
Dare I not? It's going to be an incredible happy holiday sales season, I think. And here's why. Consumer sentiment is still through the roof, extremely elevated, because wages are rising rapidly. The Atlanta Fed tracker, I think, has the latest read it up 3.7% year over year. October retail sales, of course, were up almost 5%. That's the flash number. Inflation is muted. Prices aren't going up much. Gas is down, as you said. And look, all these things that investors are so focused on, Europe's problems with Italy and Brexit and China trade, doesn't really impact the American consumer. Down the road, yes, maybe some of those things will wobble confidence here, but the strength of consumer sentiment in the face of a very turbulent stock market that's gone down, lost wealth across the country, is remarkable. And I have one further thing to add. PNC, the bank, does a 12 days of Christmas inflation price monitor. Lords a leaping, no change in prices. Gold prices down, 1.2% increase in the 12 days of Christmas gifts. I'm just telling you, okay. I think your viewers ought to know.
But we are. America is the standout. Where else in the world will there be a holiday/Christmas period to match America's? I can't think of any place else.
And it's pretty remarkable. You look at France, where, of course, Macron recently took some digs at President Trump. What would he give for an economy that is growing at 3%, inflation under control, employment in France is 10%, unemployment is 10%? How would he like under 4%? Yes, he would. So let's really kind of take a look at what policies are working, what leader is leading their country to do extremely well right now. It is President Trump in the United States. Whatever issues you have with him, it is working here right now.
I think we're in full agreement.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm really very positive about this. And unfortunately, I think the liberal media is really not very keen on giving it full play, and that has hurt the stock market, and I think it's not hurting consumer sentiment, and that's really the big news today.
Well, it has hurt the stock market. We're looking at a 100-point loss for the Dow after quite losses last week. Thank you, Liz Peek. Have a wonderful thing.
Thank you. You too.
I've got to get to trade. Big Asia-Pacific summit in Papua New Guinea over the weekend. Vice President Pence was there. So was Xi Jinping of China. things got tense. You're going
They
to tell me
did, and
what
guess
happened?
who wasn't there? Donald Trump. And the rift between the U.S. and China hung over this so-called APEC meeting in New Guinea. So much was the divisiveness in this meeting that they didn't even come out with a group statement. You could at least come out with some sort of statement. They couldn't. And at the very root of all of this is the U.S.'s claim that China should not be treated by the WTO as a market-driven economy. The U.S. says it's one dominated by state-supported industries, which in reality is true. So therefore, we had Vice President Mike Pence and President Xi of China just swapping barbs for the whole 2 days, but nothing came over it because, of course, we have the big G20 meeting coming up just in, what, a week and a half or a week now, and whether Mr. Trump and Mr. Xi will get together on the sidelines and come up with any more progress with regard to trade issues is really the issue that dominates everything right now.
So come on back in again, Art Laffer. Look, we seem to have, if I use the expression, tension is mounting ahead of the G20 summit. That's not the right thing to say, but quite clearly there are big stumbling blocks here. And the atmosphere wasn't exactly conducive to an agreement between Pence and Xi. So what chance do you think we've got of a deal coming out of the G20 summit, which is next week?
Well, I don't think we'll have a deal in the G20 summit next week, but I do think the entire situation is in Xi's hands. The U.S. has made it very clear what we need to have from China, and it's a reasonable ask from the U.S. I think it's a reasonable ask, protection from intellectual property rights and all of that. And it's up to China to ask what they need to get the deal done, and they have not done that. And what needs to be done is they need to come to us and say, here's what we'd like, here's what you'd like, let's get a deal done. I don't think Xi is ready for that. But trade is the only thing, Stuart, that can affect every country in the same direction, make all of us negative. Any type of major protectionist activities would be a real bummer for the marketplace. But all the other policies, Liz Peek was completely correct, that the U.S. is separated out on tax policy, monetary policy, regulatory policy. There's no reason why we need the rest of the world to grow rapidly for us to grow rapidly, and we're just outshining the rest of the world, and it's really neat seeing how that's happening.
It is neat, isn't it? Don't you love it?
It really is neat. I love it.
Thanks for being with us on this Thanksgiving week, and we wish you the very best Thanksgiving.
My thanks very much, Stuart. I enjoy it.
See you. Let's get the latest from the